Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Focus on Liberia. We are live on FOL TV and also Prime FM 105.5 in Monrovia. In today's edition of our show, we're going to be looking at the MCC Scorecard, that is the Millennium Challenge. We're going to look at that scorecard and what does it mean? How is that relevant to us and our economy? And the second thing we're going to be discussing is how important, how vital will the economy be to the 2023 elections? Will the economy, being a good or bad, be a determining factor on who wins the elections or the presidential elections come 2023? I have the folks here from FOL Marketplace, the guys who eat, sleep, and drink economics, business, and finance. I have Mr. Gabriel Carter. Gabriel is a host or a co-host on FOL Marketplace. Gabriel, welcome to the show.
Dennis, thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
All right. I also have Professor Larry Kennedy. The guy's been working banking, man, even before when I was a little boy. Larry, I'm not saying that you're old now. Larry, welcome to the show.
It's always a pleasure hanging out with Focus on Liberia. So nice to be here with you, my man Gabriel, and our guy in the studio, Theo. So nice to be here, guys. So I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
Loud and clear. Yeah. We are also joined by FOL reporter in Monrovia, Mr. Theo Williams, who's our anchor at Prime FM today. Theo, welcome to the show.
Theo,
are you there? Unmute yourself, please.
I don't know if you can hear us.
All right. Theo is the guy who is bringing us. If you see the FOL live show in Monrovia, it's either Theo or Prince. Welcome, Theo.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Dennis John. It's a pleasure being on this premier platform once again. It feels good.
Thank you. We want to welcome our viewers from across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia, and we are live on Prime FM. As I said, we're going to be talking about a few things today. And it's going to be the MCC Scorecard. That's going to be the first thing we're going to be talking about. And I will give you all the 9 years. That is the MCC Scorecard, and will the economy be a big factor when it comes to who wins 2023 elections? So some of the initial questions I will be starting with here, which our friends here will be trying to grapple with.
There's a feedback.
Yeah, that feedback has been taken care of. So to start the discussion, I will say, what really is this MCC scorecard and how is it relevant? The data that is used in the MCC scorecard, where does it come from and how reliable it is? Talking about MCC scorecard, what is the real life connection between the scorecard, passing or failing this scorecard or the indicator? How does it concern people, my siblings in Bannersville? We want to look at also, are there some indicators that are more important or more crucial than the others? How has Liberia performed over the years? And if we answer those crucial questions, and then we're going to go into the scorecard itself, because people keep telling us, people like Larry and say, numbers don't lie. So if numbers really don't lie, we're going to be going in the numbers. Again, I want to welcome all of you to the show. Let me start with you, Larry, on the the first question. What is this MCC scorecard and why should we care about it?
So one of the things that the U.S. have done over the years, especially starting with President Kennedy way back, is to use American aid as a means to reduce poverty, as a means to influence foreign policy over in other countries. The MCC is just an extension of that whole mindset the Americans have. The MCC is saying, look, listen, we want to try to lift poor countries out of poverty. We want to try to lift people out of poverty. And the way we can do that is to influence certain behaviors. And the way we influence their behavior is through aid. If we're going to give you aid, we expect you to do certain things. Use that aid to reduce poverty, use that aid to improve governance, use that aid to fight corruption. At a basic level, the MCC is, it started back in 2004. It's a sort of it's not truly part of the federal government establishment. It's like its own little subsidiary of the federal government, so to speak. The key thing to the MCC is the data they use is all, it's data that is, you can't influence the data, so to speak, because it comes from certain sources. So the bottom line, it is a report card on how well countries are doing to alleviate poverty, fight corruption, and improve governance. It's like when everybody go to school at some point, right? The way how you judge how well a student is doing is we look at the report cards. And the MCC is pretty much like a report card. If you don't do well in school, you fail, and you have to repeat the grade. Same thing with MCC. If you do well, you are rewarded by receiving resources or foreign aid from the US to help alleviate your people out of poverty. So it's a report card on how well governance is doing. So it's not subjective. They use objectivity to measure how well people are doing, and it's pretty much considered fair across the board.
Yeah, I think Larry covers everything that, what the MCC is. I think if I may just add to what he said, it's mostly focused on, like he said, it's not the main arm of the U.S., international foreign policy, arm. It's little bit of entity on the side, but their focus is specifically on poor country, specifically trying to alleviate or reduce poverty. And like Larry said, usually they're focused in agriculture, education, energy, health, land and property rights, roads and transportation infrastructure, water and sanitation. So those are some of the areas that they focus on, but they mostly focus on poor country, trying to get those poor country out of poverty and put them on a trajectory to a middle income state. Yeah.
Thank you. And MCC meaning Millennium Challenge Corporation.
Yeah.
When I first saw you, I thought it was Monrovia City Corporation, but that's a different MCC. So we also being joined by Alex Coffey, or known as 9. Alex is he's worked extensively in the FBI of money, FIU. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis. Hello to everybody. Hello to Larry. Hello to Gabriel, and hello to everybody in cyberspace that is listening now and will listen later.
Thank you. And
I apologize. I'll be on and off the camera a little bit. So
that is okay. Hey, is Margaret Peters following us?
Off the camera. Say again.
Is Margaret Peters following us? Is she on already? If not, please get her attention.
So I know we got a new scorecard. We had a great sheet from last year, this year. So really, where do these numbers come from, and how reliable? Why should we depend on these numbers, or why should we trust them?
Yeah, Dennis, if you look at the millennial scorecards, like Larry said earlier, those numbers they come from the country, right? But they are gathered by different institutions, American institutions. So depending on the topics, the different areas, you got World Bank could be giving data, you got IMF could be giving data, you got Carter Center could be giving data. It depends. If it's election, is it ruling justly? Different institutions, NGOs will be giving. I mean, credible. These are credible NGOs, but they got a lot of the data from the country. So if the data is not tallied properly, because we have data problem, of course. If the data is cold, like say, look at inflation, for example. The way Liberia calculates inflation is indexed to the Liberian dollar rather than indexing it to the US dollars. That's why we have a situation where we appear to have lower inflation, but and then we also have this artificial lower exchange rate. I don't see a country which exchange rate for 1 year, 2 years now don't go up. It just stagnate around 150 thereabout. But then you have on the flip side, you have high prices in the country and stuff like that. So, but that's the data they use. So if you give the data to IMF, if you calculate that way, they'll take it. That's why people like IMF, they have cushion. They always adjust anyway, and their model has not been the best for Africa, for third world countries anyway. So, but they collect the data from the country, and they use this data to populate the different the different areas.
Right. Thank you. So let's look at some of those indicators. So the question really is, what is the connection? I know Larry said this is tied with aid because you pass, they give you money, you feel. So let's look at what does passing or failing really mean? What is the real life connection? If Liberia, for instance, fails the MCC indicators, when I'm walking on the street, can I see it? What are some of the things that I look at and say, oh yes, we pass or we fail?
So here's one of the key reasons also why the MCC is meant to help developing countries. A lot of these countries, you need money to develop your country, bottom line. All things being equal, cash is king. You need cash to build the roads. You need cash for education. You need cash for pretty much everything to develop your country. The problem is a lot of these developing countries, in order to gain access to that cash, you need credit, right? And a lot of these countries do not have what is called sovereign debt rating. There are rating agencies out there that can say, hey, your sovereign debt, when you borrow money, you have a AAA credit rating. That means you can borrow money. A lot of these developing countries do not have credit rating. So credit ratings come from 3 major companies out there. It's called Moody's, Fitch, and S&P, right? Those major companies will give you credit rating. Liberia doesn't have a credit rating. So Liberia, when Liberia tried to borrow money, and you all remember this, right? The whole Eton fiasco, right? That's because they couldn't raise money from the capital markets. They couldn't go out and put out a bond that people will buy and lend the country money. So they rely on money from the IMF. They rely on loans from the IMF and the World Bank and grants. So having that additional money from the MCC is extremely beneficial. A lot of countries do not have credit rating. But when you don't meet the benchmarks, when you cannot qualify for the MCC, that means the money you need to help fix the roads, your internet, your education, healthcare, all these social development things you need, that money is not going to be there. So now you're going to have a stress on your economy. And it's even worse in Liberia. Why? Because the population is growing at a rate of 2.4%. If the population is growing faster than the economy is growing, you will run into something that was laid out by this economist called Okun. It's called Okun's law, where you have something called the misery index. People become miserable because now you have the income that you're bringing in reducing. At the same time, the population is growing and the economy is not keeping up with it. So not having that MCC money is going to have a huge impact. It's going to have a very big impact as well. It's going to lead to a lot of things, unemployment. It can lead to the country not developing. It can lead to, people will feel it. You're definitely going to feel it.
Gabriel, you want to add? If we feel it, what will we see?
Yeah, so I just want to add to what Larry said. So for example, right, let me tell you how impactful and how you can literally feel, whether you pass or you fail the MCC scorecard. So in 2015, we passed the trade policy, we passed the inflation, right? In 2022, we failed both of them. Now, as far as that goes, what are you seeing that is one of the biggest problem in Liberia right now in terms of this food problem? There's the inflation. Currently, we don't. Supposedly, the government's coming out to say we're at 13. What is it, 7% or 6%? But I follow this company called Pangea Risk that does credit risk for developing country. Right. Our inflation is at 20% right now. Right. So that tells you that they feel that part of it, right? And we're feeling that from the economic standpoint, where a lot of people are. If you talk to, as I said, sometimes you don't have to look at these numbers. Just talk to a Liberian back home. You will get the feel of what is happening with the numbers. That will be a good correlation, right? So we feel inflation in 2022, right? Our trade policy is not in check. We failed the trade policy as well. Back in 2015, even though that was a different administration, we have both we have both of those metrics, right? So 2022, 2015 to 2022 as well, there's a huge gap in terms of that correlation of what the people are feeling. So from comparing the numbers to say what the number is telling us, we can feel it on the human side, side of things. Yes, you do see that, and I think for us right now, we're feeling that from the inflation, and we're seeing what is happening with trade policy. Like technically, right now we have zero trade policy. There's no trade policy. Hence why we actually feel that in the last scorecard as well. But yeah.
Thank you. So let's talk about these indicators, and I want to put on the screen. I want to put this on the screen so we can see. So right on the screen, we have a snapshot of the top portion of the MCC scorecard.
Right.
So they use one word called indicators. So tell me, what are those indicators?
So the indicators like they measure different aspect of the economy, right? Like the economic freedom. Under the economic freedom, there's hold on, let me see if I can pull this out on my
Fiscal
end.
policy,
Right.
inflation.
So there's fiscal policy, as I said earlier, there's inflation, there's regulatory, quality, there's trade policy, which as I mentioned, we failed. And it goes down further down to there's gender in the government. I guess they measure the number of, supposedly women in the government. Land rights, I know somebody who works in that area. I think they're making a lot of headwinds, so I'm not surprised that they passed that. Access to credit, there's business startup.
Right. We will come to the passing and the feeling, but really,
Right.
what are those indicators? What they are? Talk to me. Talk to my auntie in Lagoon. When you say the indicators, what we're talking about here?
So indicator just mean measurement.
Okay.
Right. So indicator, what it mean? It just mean as another word for measurement. Right. So it just measures certain things. If somebody say I have a good indicator, economic indicator, it mean I have a good measurement. So it just indicator just mean measurement. Right.
So like for instance, inflation. So
Right.
if we measure inflation, what does that tell us? If we measure political right, what does that tell us? If we measure government effectiveness, what does that tell us?
So I would take the top two, right? So let's say fiscal policy. So measuring fiscal policy, that means, and in this case, what we actually failed means that our fiscal policy, in terms of what the metrics that was set, the indicator that the MCC challenge scorecard set that we're supposed to meet to pass that, we're not meeting that. The same thing with inflation, right? And I see, as I said earlier, I see why we fail inflation, because technically we don't know how to measure inflation in our country, or we don't know how to control it. Currently, technically, our inflation is supposed to be at 20%, but we have a minister of finance who's saying that the inflation is at 6%, right? Not only are we getting the 20% from the World Bank, as I said, we're getting that from an external party, which is Pangea Risk, right? That does measurement across most of the country in Africa. They're saying the same thing, as the inflation is at 20%. So there's a big discrepancy into what is needed, what we need to be to supposedly this is a scorecard, what we need to be to pass, and when we pass, we're supposed to get a money associated with that. But there's a huge discrepancy between those two. What we need to not just pass or to get the money, but also what is actually happening in the country. And this is exactly what this scorecard is pointing out.
Thank you. Larry, let's look at the scorecard again. And I see like three basic section here. I see the one that says Liberia fiscal year 22. I see the one that says half scorecard pass, control corruption failed. And then I see down. So walk me through this three basic section. What are they telling us?
So it's important to understand what it is that the Millennium Challenge Corporation is kind of looking at to measure countries and to qualify them for the compact agreement. The fiscal policy is how well you're using people's tax dollars to kind of reduce poverty, how well you're collecting taxes and using it to alleviate poverty. So that's one thing they're looking at, very important. And that's all falls under the economic freedom. Going back to your question in terms of what are indicators, and Gabriel said it, it's just a way to measure how well you're doing compared to others, right? So if I go to the market to go buy something, the indicator would be, okay, how well that bidder boy is looking compared to the person selling next to you. If yours is looking much better, I want to buy it. So what are these indicators? Are the things that we're going to use to compare you to, first we're comparing you to the benchmark we set. We're comparing you to the numbers we want to see. Then we're going to compare you now to everybody else who falls in that category, everybody else in the market. So we say, okay, here is what the numbers we're trying to reach. We can't just compare you to that number, because if we're not comparing you to someone else, we don't know how well you're doing compared to somebody else. So we have to say, okay, here's the numbers. We're going to compare you to this number, but then compare other people. So Liberia is being compared to Sierra Leone. Liberia is being compared to Mali. Liberia is being compared to other countries as well, right? We're looking at economic freedom. How easy is it for people to gain access to capital? How are you using tax dollars? We know inflation is the poor man's tax, because a lot of poor people spend more of their money buying food. Mm-hmm. So when you have things like headline inflation, you have things like fuel, and Liberia depends heavily on gasoline because everything pretty much runs on generator. So when you have inflation running high, you're not going to do very well on the MCC scorecard because you don't have something in place to reduce inflation. Mm-hmm. And then when we look at inflation compared to other countries, we want to see where you rank. So if you on inflation, if other countries, if the mark is 27, we want to know where you are ranked. You are ranked 7% out of that group. And when you look at 2021, 2022, you can see Liberia hasn't done well at all, because inflation is a key component to reducing poverty. If you have very high inflation, a lot of poor people then would be spending more money that they don't have to try to buy food, for healthcare, and a whole lot of things. So inflation is very important on the economic freedom side. The rule of law, we know back in June of 2021, President Biden put out a statement. Biden put out a statement saying, look, corruption is a threat to U.S. national security. So we know the rule of law is extremely important. And I think it's one of the main components, one of the main reasons why Liberia failed, because we didn't do so well on the rule of law.
Right.
Very important. So the 27, the 38% you've seen, 17 you've seen is pretty much the sort of the benchmark for everyone to try to, or how much everyone is trying to reaching out. And then it shows what you've done. The way to judge the scorecard, look at the ranking Liberia had from the previous year compared to the ranking they have this year, and then see whether it improved or it got worse. Yeah. If it got worse, yeah.
Yeah, I will come to that question, how we perform over the years. I want, somebody, I'm picking up this scorecard and I'm looking at it, Mr. Coffee, you can come in now. I'm looking at this scorecard. I see on the left-hand population, GNI cap category. I see on the right here, half scorecard, pass, fail, check mark, check mark. Mr. Coffee, just give me a synopsis of this scorecard. Looking at it, what does it mean?
Yeah, I think Larry and Gabriel have done some good explanation. But just to put it in summary, as it appears on the screen here. Yeah, you got the population. That's our population. We got the GNI, but that's a long conversation. So let me look at it one by one, very quickly. So control of corruption, we pass, right? So what does it mean? It means that when we say we pass, meaning we got to get at least 50%, certain percentage and certain numbers in some of these areas based on the data that is collected. So control of corruption means there are two parts of controlling corruption, right? We have the institutions set up. So that alone gives you a good 50%. So you have the GSC, you have the LACC, you have the Internal Audit Agency, you have all these different agencies. They are producing reports. But another part is effectiveness. But we've already got the 50% for the fact that we got all the institutions established and people are appointed. But the question is, are we effective in controlling corruption? That means these investigations that are going on, these different audit reports, are we taking action on them? Are people going to court? Are people found guilty? Are property being confiscated back to the state? Those are properties that were corrupted or stolen. Are they being given back to the state through? So you can have the one-sided thing where you have all these institutions, but if you're not effective in terms of the end goal is to send people to court, find people guilty. It's not that you're going to find people guilty just by chance, but they have to go to court. And is it happening in our country? And those stolen property, are they being confiscated or are they being seized back to the state? No, it's not happening. But yet we pass because we have the institution. Democratic rights. Democratic right means elections. So we have election commission. We are having successive election throughout the year. We haven't had a situation where election has been rigged massively, like in 1986 or so. So we don't have that situation yet over the past few years since 2005. So obviously, yes, we have the institution. We are voting for our people. Even though, for example, you elect the bunch of legislature, they're doing something different for their own selfish gain. That is not what we are measuring. I mean, these indicators are measuring. They're measuring the fact that you have at least a National Election Commission, you have successive elections, people are being voted, there's no being serious confusion or serious rigging. Okay. Fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is about money, but it's more about credit granting and what are you giving people compared to your national GDP. That's why you have those things on the board. How many people have access to credit facilities and those kind of things, right? So that's inflation, like we talk about. Even though our inflation seems to be low, I mean, appears to be low, but again, prices are high. So definitely our policy and the way they do the calculation is going to be low. So, I mean, in a nutshell, everybody else spoke about rule of law and something else, but I just wanted to touch on those key items, the control of corruption and the democratic way, because you have to pass those two. Those you must pass.
Say that again.
You must pass those two plus, I think, half of the others.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's why you see on the score on the top that it says half scorecard pass. So you see on there, if you pass half, at least half, you make it. It's not like they want you to score A plus or B or just to get a C. That's all they're asking you.
Right.
So if you have all these indicators, if you have 10 indicators, for example, you must pass 5 plus control of corruption and democratic rights. You must pass those.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
It's like somebody
So
telling
that
you,
is
your
half of the
professor telling
scorecard.
you, just do the bare minimum, get a C for Christ's sake.
Oh, okay. And that's what I was going to ask now, because pass or fail, what does it mean? So it means you must pass half of the indicators plus the two main ones, control of corruption.
Yeah.
And we'll go in these things one at a time,
right,
just so that people understand.
Right.
One of we got, I think, 4 different headings: ruling justly, investing in the people,
Right.
uh,
So I think there's three.
economic freedom.
Right. There's three.
Yeah.
So there's ruling justly, economic freedom, and
Investing.
I think investing in the people. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
investing in the people.
Right.
So let's start with so under economic freedom we have the fiscal policy, inflation, regulatory quality, trade policy. Under ruling justice we have political rights, civil liberties, control of corruption, government effectiveness, rule of law, freedom of information. Wow. So are there, and you kind of partly answer my question that say, are there some of these scorecards or some of the indicators that are more crucial, that are more important than the others?
I would say yes,
Right.
because the reason being, bear in mind, what is the goal? What is the objective of the whole MCC? The objective is to reduce poverty, because living off foreign aid is not a strategy, right? It's a tactical thing. It's something you do short term to kind of get yourself on your feet in order to be able to, it's our old saying, hey, help me to get back on my feet so I can start running again. What is very important is, what are the chances that giving you this money is going to help you get on your feet? So, Uncle Sam is not spoon feeding you year after year. What you need to look at, Dennis, what is extremely important, and I don't know if you have it, what is extremely important is you need to take a look at the top section of the scorecard, where you're looking at the population, you're looking at the GNI, gross national income per capita, the slash per capita. You need to look at the category of GNI, because wealth in a nation is extremely important. Because if you a wealthy nation, overall, it improves the welfare for people. He said that's a reason why back in 1960, Singapore income per capita was, I think it was around maybe 7,000 or 8,000 or so. What did Singapore do that by 2009, the US income per capita was around 30-something thousand? What is it that Singapore did that in 2009, Singapore passed the US in the income per capita, income per individual in Singapore, the GNI, was higher than the United States in 2009. I mean, one key reason in 2009, we had the financial crisis that kicked off in 2007. By 2009, Singapore had passed the US. And Singapore was very corrupt. The three tigers, Singapore, Taiwan, Hong Kong, extremely corrupt. What did they do that they were able to pass the US, that everyone now is running to Singapore to study their model? When you look at the GNI per capita, you need to see that in 2021, the GNI, which is the total income, gross national income, whether it's from, it includes GDP, everything that is earned for the country, including foreign direct investments, remittances, everything. If you take that and divide it by the population, it gives you the GNI per capita. In 2021, it was $580 per person. Still low. I can look at 2017 and see that it was even higher in 2017 than in 2021. But take a look at this. Take a look at it. If you look at 2022,
Right here.
the GNI per capita fell from $580 per person to $530 per person. Bear in mind, the key goal of the MCC is to help you alleviate your people out of poverty. You come forth with a pro-poor agenda.
But Laura, before you continue, what is this GNI? What does it measure?
The GNI is gross national income. The slash is like per, and the C is capital, gross national income per capita. You take the total income in the country that the country is earning, total income.
GDP, right.
Right. You take the total income. It includes GDP as well, but it also includes foreign investments. A country that has a lot of foreign direct investments will have a very high GNI also. So you take all of the income the country has earned and you divide it by the population.
Yep.
In 2021, the population was like 4,900,000 or something thousand. And this is why I said it's so important. Pay close attention to the population growth rate. The GNI also fell because the population grew. The population grew year over year by what? About maybe 100,000 or so. By the
110.
population growing, you take all that money you've earned, divided by the higher population, the GNI per capita is going to fall.
Before.
So we have a very fertile. The fertility rate in Liberia is extremely high. We're not keeping up with the production in the country, so the country is getting poorer year after year. MCC wants to know: can you stop putting your people into poverty? From 2021 to 2022, you haven't shown that you're able to. That's why you're going to fail. From 2020 to 2021, you haven't shown that you're able to. 4 years running, you haven't shown that you're able to alleviate poverty despite your pro-poor agenda. It has not worked. So if I'm measuring you, Dennis or Gabe or my man Alex, if my key measure to you is, are you able to get people out of poverty? And you failing? Now, why the hell am I going to give you money? Right. You're just going to blow that off. You don't have the policies in place to alleviate poverty. So you're not going to pass.
So from 2019, as we see on the screen, to 2020, was that good because we moved from GNI grew from 380 to 600?
But bear in mind where the GNI was before the team that is currently there. So where was the GNI, let's say around 2017 or so?
All right. I think I got this is 2021 GNI 580.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see we failed past. This is 2020. And I included 2017.
Right. So here's the thing. The size of the population, because GNI is, you take the total income the country is earning and divide it by the total population. If you see the population growing at a very fast rate, bear in mind that you can't look at the data just by itself. You have to compare it to what your neighbors are doing. So what is the GNI for some of the other countries in the region? The GNI for those countries are much higher than the GNI that you have. So you're competing for this money. Not everybody's going to get it. You're competing. It's like being in a tournament. Not everybody's going to win the championship, right? Not everybody's going to win the Ballon d'Or. Somebody's going to win. Somebody's going to lose. How are you competing with your neighbors, the other people that are in this, are competing for this, the Ivory Coast, the other countries that are in there as well? You're not doing extremely well. You're not doing extremely well.
So
if I just wanted to add, right? So I mean, there's a little bit of asterisks that we can add to this too. In like you see in 2020, even though the GNI was high at $600, $600, but we had less population growth, right? And that was, I think we all know what happened in 2020 with the pandemic, So of course the GNI is going to actually increase, but right after that, things started normalizing, and we got right back on the same trend where it start decreasing up to now where we are at 530 as well. So that, as Larry said, there's a correlation between the number of the growth, population growth, and the GDP per capita. Yeah.
And before I go to Alex, Gabriel, we say the whole concept of pass or fail. Mm-hmm. Because if I look at this and I see and permit me with my color business, I see red, green, yellow, I say, oh, we pass, right?
Right.
So somebody was telling me, say, oh, the people are lying. So looking at 2022, do you see Liberia pass or fail, and why?
I mean, I think Alex did a good job explaining this, but I will just add to that, right? So, and the reason why the last slide you had on with the asterisk, whether we have the pass, but I had the asterisk, is because, as Alex said, we don't even have to pass the entire thing. It's like taking most exams in the United States here, right? I mean, when I mean exam, not in school, but like the GMAT or the GRE. You don't have to do, get an A plus, pass 90% to get a 90. Just do the bare minimum, and additional. They'll say either additional to other area, and you will be good. That's what I said. Even though we passed those areas, it's just with an asterisk. Like we didn't do that. We didn't pass with flying colors, as you would say. So in actuality, we passed those areas, but we didn't do so well in them. That's why I put the passing grade on those two. But if you look within those areas as well, like the ruling justly, there are certain specific areas within those in those areas that what we fail, which I thought we supposed to do very well in as well, and compared to what we were in 2015, 16, and up to now. But that's what I said. We pass in those areas, but if you look, let's say specifically under investing in people, there are other like sub area in those that scorecard that where we fail. That's why even though I said we pass it, but we asterisk. There's a a little bit of question mark on there. Yeah.
Alex, economic freedom, we've been feeling since 2018.
Yep.
I mean, let me ask you, because you were in the previous governments, people say, how has Labrador performed over the years? Because what we keep hearing is, we were always failing, so why are you saying it now? Or this has been the best since 1847, or we hear something like this kind of thing never happened, Ellen, all those kind of things. So let's look at our performance over the years when it comes to the MCC scorecard. On mute, please.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Yeah, the MCC scorecard over the years, we when it started, I think in 2014 thereabout, we started failing, of course. Then during Madam Salif time, in fact, it all started during Madam Salif time. So we passed. All right, I think one of those years we passed, and then we got the money, the 250 plus million for that, the one that was supposed to be used for electricity. I say supposed to be used, so in quotation. So then I think since 2018, as you have on the board, we've been feeling, for example, we've been feeling economic freedom. So the first thing I need to do is to provide little understanding about what is the component. Economic freedom is a whole category. What is that component that is involved in the economic freedom? So you have things like access to credit, right? That's an indicator. Like Gabriel said, that's a measure. What do they measure? Access to credit, what does that mean? It means how small businesses, for example, do they have access to getting money from the bank loan easily? And do they have competitive interest rates? Okay, so that's what they call access to credit. Then business startup. You know that recently we feel this investment climate stuff, right? Business startup could be things like how difficult or how easy it is to start a business in the country, to register, how long it takes, those kind of things, how much you pay. Back in the day, during early time, they had a situation where it took about at least 11 days to register a business. But then when they started the whole business climate review process, it dropped to 3 days, to the extent that they had a one-stop shop. So when you go to that's why I gave rise to even the Liberian Business Registry. It was split, it was removed out of Ministry of Commerce, and it had a standalone. They didn't make it an autonomous agency by itself. It still falls under the Ministry of Commerce, but it operates almost independently, right? So you're supposed to have a one-stop shop where when you go to pay your money for the tax portion, which goes to Labrador Revenue Authority, you can pay it right there. The bank window is there. You don't need a lawyer. Where you need a lawyer, they will advise you where to go, and things like that. So what are those components that make up that stuff? Then economic policy also includes the fiscal policy indicator, which we've always failed. So then it has gender in the economy. Gender in the economy, are women participating? What is the extent to which gender mainstreaming comes in all this stuff? So once these things are not happening, of course, when we fail an investment climate report, obviously we're not passing this stuff. So that's some of the struggle we've had. Is it capable of being fixed? Yes, is capable of being fixed. For example, a business startup is capable of being fixed. You can even register a company in a day time. You can start in the morning. You're capable of finishing, because we have the institution. It was set up. It was reduced from more than 11 days to 3 days or less. But then we fell back. So it can be done. Access to credit. We have all these. We have Access Bank and all these different microfinance companies. Why is money not getting to the government announced at $1 million to, but when this money goes to the bank, what do? They give it to their favorite people, right? They don't give it to the real people. Some people get the loan for corruption business and stuff like that. So we've heard these stories. We saw all kinds of publications. So obviously, these things are easy to deal with, but because of our selfish interest and things like that, we drop the ball all the time. That's why we are failing in these things.
Thank you. So let's look at this one. Look at ruling justly or Larry. Political rights. We passed, right? Civil liberties. Our ranking is 85%. Or control of corruption. Hallelujah. Right? We passed those three.
You got this. You got the spirit on that one, huh? Seems like a contradiction, right?
Right.
Yes.
So what are they looking at?
Right. And seriously.
So here's the thing. That's a great question, Dennis. Thanks for the question. So here's the thing. Liberia did well on political rights. They did well on civil liberties. But yet, they still fail. They have yes scorecard. Rwanda did terrible on political rights. They did terrible on civil liberties, but they passed. They have yes scorecard. Think about it. Rwanda did poorly on all democratic freedom and rights. Liberia did very well in that section. Rwanda passed, Liberia failed, the overall scorecard. Take a step back and ask yourself, well, why? I mean, we even passed corruption. We passed political rights. How the hell could Rwanda fail political rights, civil liberties, fiscal policy? They fail in all of that stuff. Rwanda passed because the goal of the MCC is to alleviate poverty. Rwanda did extremely well on controlling inflation. Rwanda did extremely well on access to credit. Rwanda did extremely well on all those categories that will help reduce the poverty in Rwanda. That's why they fail on the democratic rights side of things, but they still pass the card overall, because the goal of the MCC is to reduce poverty in your country. When you look at the charts, right? Because you have to look at the charts. When you hover on those charts, then it can tell you whether we were doing. You can see the little radio buttons, whether it's going up, meaning we improve year over year, or if it's going down. So some of the key indicators like inflation. Inflation did improve from 2019 to 2020, but overall, we haven't done extremely well on inflation. And I saw the comment earlier from Stephen Johnson, and Brother Johnson is right. Brother Johnson is absolutely right. The country has been deceived because inflation is a poor man's tax. When people talk about inflation in America, they're looking at core inflation. Core inflation is how a price is changing, but it doesn't discuss gasoline. It doesn't discuss energy and food prices. Energy and food prices are very important in Liberia. That is referred to as headline inflation. When people talk inflation in Liberia, they don't talk headline inflation that affects the poor people. They talk about core inflation. And that's the key thing. So in a way, it's very deceptive, because that's why the scorecard saying you're failing inflation, even though you're telling people you're doing extremely well in controlling inflation. But overall, the scorecard, at the end of the day, you're not controlling prices, because when people go to buy gasoline for their generator, the price of gas is high. And we know we live off generator. We don't have solar panels, the abundance of sun. We don't have solar panels in abundance in the country. So yeah, even though we did well on ruling justly, but the key thing for the MCC in terms of how we're reducing poverty, we're failing terribly. That's why they have yes scorecard. We fail. And countries that did poorly on ruling justly, they still pass.
Yeah. If I may just add.
Yeah, because this one struck me on the investing in people, right?
Right.
And I'm looking at this. I say, oh wow, I like the topic they gave it, investing in people. But go ahead, Gabriel. Before
No, I just wanted to make a quick comment. Again, that the chart that we had on there where I put that pass with the asterisk, I spent a lot of time looking at this stuff. Just because they said we passed, so the controlling of corruption, 2021, the score was at 56. But even though we passed it in 2022, where the score dropped, we passed it with 54, right? So even though we're passing in those areas that we passed, was still declining. It's not up there. I was just looking at the 2021 numbers. So
okay.
that's what I'm saying. Like some of these things, like there's a increment, like a gradual decline into in the scores. Like the 2021 controlling corruption, right? We pass it by 56, but 2022 we pass it, but we're 54. So there's a 2 percentage point decrease, right? So I would like to see what comes out in 2023 and 2024 going forward. I'm sure we're going to see a gradual decline in those scores. But I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, Gabriel. Let me add that since the Millennium Challenge Scorecard started, we have always passed corruption and democratic rights. We've always passed. So from the inception, we've always passed. The reason is that, like I said, we will always pass those things, except that the score could be dropping, right?
That's what I'm saying.
We
That's
were
what
passing
I'm
with a higher 50, but now it's dropping. It's almost to the minimum of 50%, right?
Yep.
Yeah, because of other things, because of what is going on.
I think they are ignoring a lot of things, right? Like
No,
for instance,
Dennis, in these things they have you can pass there are two parts to it. Set up the structure. You already got your 50%. Do the work for the other 50%. So in corruption, once you set up all these different institutes, the checklist, oh yeah, GSC is set up, an auditor general is appointed, always appointed. He follows his tenure, nobody disturbs him. He does his work. LACC is formed. They are investigating. You form the board. You put it there. Democratic right. You have
so Alex,
like
so
what
they're looking at forming LACC. Whether you put what they call it, Wambodiki there or not, they don't even care. Just have it.
No, they care. That is why the score is dropping now, and we don't take time. Maybe in a year or two, maybe next time we may drop below 50. We may feel corruption. We may. All right. Now, mind you, the data that we're talking about is within the last 2 years. Okay, so it's data could be covering between 2020 and 2021. Okay, so it's not next year they will be looking at 2021, 2022 figures, right? So the next Millennium Challenge Scorecard that is coming up will be looking at 2021 and 2022 figures. And I think I read something somewhere as a rebuttal to the scorecards. I think that was supporting the government, meaning that the government is saying that they're sure of passing in the 2023 scorecard, because these figures that you're talking about is during the COVID time, is 2020 figures, is 2021 figures when we're trying to recover. So we are sure of passing in, but the way things are going, we may feel corruption, because if it dropped to 49%, we feel. So what I'm saying is that once you have the structure set up, you from the onset, then you pass. But the way the fight against corruption has been derailing to the extent that now we have people on sanction list, we may fail corruption the next time.
You mentioned something very important, sanction list. And I don't know what's the impact, but do they also measure, because let's say Mr. McGill, who's on the sanction list, he had a triumphal entry into Bong County, into Banga. The same with Bill Twaway, entering river says like Jesus entering Jerusalem. Does that factor into the millennial? Because it's the way the people appreciate him. Does the scorecard take into consideration that also? How your people respond if they are happy for you and say, hey, yeah, you are good. Does it take that into consideration or no?
Do you see their faces? Are they really happy, or there's a fake crowd? You got to look at that too. When you keep what we're doing to our population, when you keep your population almost into poverty, and you keep them, you create the fear factors, all that stuff. Of course, when you come out there, they will come out there because they're expecting something. Or when you go to the crowd and give them $5, $5, $10, they will come out. They will come out. Look, election in Liberia. Let me tell you something. From my experience, give somebody a T-shirt to wear, the person will go to your march. The person will go to your political rally. Let alone giving somebody $5. The person will go to your rally. One, because that person not only going to your rally for you, but that person going there because you've increased their wardrobe with a T-shirt. Or they know that T-shirt, they're going to wear it for the next few years.
Yeah.
They take pride in receiving that T-shirt because they're going to wear it. They got clothes, right? You get them free clothes, so they will go to your match. You get them small match, they will go to your match. So sometimes the crowd don't depend, but again, in politics too, the crowd too is a way of swaying people attention towards you. Say, oh boy, like you're saying now, oh, but the people went, the crowd went there. Oh, the crowd went there. So it's a balancing act.
I think yeah, go ahead, Larry. Sorry.
No, I wanted Larry to conclude on the
Larry, go ahead.
To our next segment. So Gabriel, you go first. And Larry,
no, I just wanted to say that I think the people can read behind between the lines too. Just because you go somewhere, there's a jubilant crowd that's welcoming you, does not, correlate to what your economy is doing. So I think they can read between the lines too, and they know the kind of population we have in Liberia, unfortunately. So, yeah.
Larry, let's wrap up on the scorecard.
Two things real quick. You mentioned Jesus entering Jerusalem. When Jesus was entering Jerusalem, a man ran up to him and said, "Good Lord, what must I do to enter the kingdom of heaven?" And Jesus told him, "It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven." How many of these people entering Jerusalem will be willing to give up their worldly possessions? Few of them. So I won't even, talk about them getting into Jesus walking into Jerusalem. The thing about the scorecard is sometimes it's very deceptive, right? And let me tell you why. Because it's saying that control of corruption, that is very deceptive. Let me tell you why. Imagine the four of us here in a class and we took an algebra exam. If the highest score in the algebra exam is 65, it will look, so the highest score is 65. So the teacher now is measuring the rest of the class based on this high score. So the next person that scored, let's say 60. The teacher will say, okay, between 60 and 70, okay, you two people did well because the rest of them did poorly. So the scorecard is just comparing you based on everybody else in your income level. It doesn't mean you're really fighting corruption. It simply means everybody else in that bucket, they're all as corrupt as you are. And they're just doing a comparison based on everybody in that class, that income class. So you just saying that, hey, 54% control corruption, that means Sierra Leone is very corrupt. That means the other country in the region, whether it's Mali, Burkina Faso, or anybody else in that category, is extremely corrupt. Doesn't mean you've done extremely well. So the data sometimes is very, very deceptive because it's saying 54% you pass. No, that's because everybody else in that category is just as corrupt. That's what that whole thing means, So somebody scoring 65 in an algebra exam doesn't mean they're the brilliant person in their class. It just means the rest of the students were just very poor at algebra. That's what that is all about. So, they just want to put that in perspective so people understand when they're saying, hey, this person passed. You only pass relative to the other people in that category.
I'm going to play a video. I don't know the time on this video, but I want you to think about the role of God, in the millennial scorecard, what role God had to play in it. Can we pray our way out of it?
You and
the prayer, one, for him to for the President of the Republic of Liberia. Let there be a transfer of it. Reverend?
Amen. We are again glad that we can come around to pray for our brother, our son, our uncle. Amen. Amen. If I may, let me ask Pastor Jerry and Pastor Fire to lead this section.
Just point your hands. Yes, here, and just touch, and your hand can reach.
Right.
All right. To what extent can prayer make the sanction to pass over Brother McGill? Don't answer that question. That's take us.
That's a rhetorical question, right?
Now it's not.
The sanction prayer they're having on there.
No, I don't know.
Dennis,
But that takes us to our next question, right? We are talking about the economy. We're talking numbers. Elections 2023 around the corner, especially the presidential election. To what extent will the economy, being it good, being it bad, flourishing, will that play a role in who becomes president? If the economy is bad or is good or is around there, will it favor the incumbent? Will it favor the opposition? Which one? So let's discuss the role the economy is going to play come 2023 to determine who wins. Let me start with Mr. Nanglet. Now, you work in government, so I think you know a little more when it comes to what role the economy will play.
Yeah, sometimes we think that I've heard people say that in different arguments, whether chat rooms or whether group discussion, I've heard people say that Liberia election is not issue based, unlike the election in the U.S., where the way a president handled the economy will affect them. But to answer your question directly, the why I may disagree or agree in some instance when it comes to issue based, but it's simple. The elections in Liberia has to do with the electorate, how they feel at that moment. Okay? Whether it's issue based or not, it is how I feel at that moment. So if I feel that the current president is making me to be hungry as compared to the last time, then that's part of the economy, right? The economy is such that prices are high. The economy is such that people are not getting jobs. So my uncle needs to work so I can go to my uncle to collect my late better rent. My uncle has lost a job. My uncle was working 6 years ago. Now my uncle is not working. So I'm not getting where I have to get my daily bread. Meanwhile, prices are going up. My sister abroad, who was sending me $20 every day, every month or every week, that $20 now, because the prices are high and because the exchange rate is low, so we are changing the US dollar for a lower amount. Meanwhile, the prices are going up. So if you gave me $10 4 years ago, I will go and change that $10 and get 2,000 Liberian dollars. But now I'm only getting 1,005. But meanwhile, the goods that I was buying for $200, 500 Liberian dollars, it's gone up to $1,000. So that means I have to go back to my sister abroad to send me $40 or $30 this time. And my sister is saying, oh no, I'm working at that, my salary not going up like that. So I will give you my $20. I will continue to give you $20. You're suffering. Then you think, then you say, but when Madam Sally was in power, I was doing better with the $10 they were sending me. Now this man is in power. I'm doing worse. So I will go and try the next person who will tell me that he will improve my situation. So that's an issue based right there, as simple as you get it. So the economy plays a role in terms of jobs. Are you creating jobs? Are you bringing in more private sector to employ people? If more companies are closing in the country and employment ability is going down, it's a problem. Okay, the government taking is the government taking pay. Now you do harmonization, you reduce our salary. That's something that that affect the people. Somebody was making $600, now the person making $200. It affect the person. It affect the person's bottom line. So the people that look up to that person. Oh, John Brown was here when all these people were in government. We were getting money from them. We may not have been employed, but at least we're getting something. We're getting laid hand out there, and we're getting by. But these people are not employed anymore. So I'm not going to vote for this.
Alex,
vote for other people. Yeah.
So are you saying those people that you just described are not going to vote for President Weah because the person they were depending on now do not support them or don't have that money, meaning the economy has gone down, and so that's going to impact him?
You understand this now.
Mm-hmm.
Understand this, right? Josh Weah, election after election, his actual percentage of the electorate is around 30% plus or minus. It could be 20. You know that I'm talking about the first round election, I'm not talking about the second round. Look at election result in 2005. 2011, he was vice president, so I won't count that. Look at 2017. What was his actual percentage before the second round? Now, look what is happening now with the way he's carrying the country. Do you think he still hold that percentage? Do you think it's still going up or it's coming down? 2005 was his best. Was his best, even though he won 2007. But I say that 2005 was his best performance. I mean, even though Ellen was a stronger candidate, but it was his best performance. And he had around, I think, 30 something, plus or minus. And now 2017, the same thing. And Monserrado has always voted opposition. When he was in opposition, Monserrado voted him, but that was around 40 something, 48%. All right, 2017 is around the same thing, 40 something percent, at 47, 48 thereabout, not more than 48%. So what is happening in Monserrado now? What is happening in Nimba County? What is happening in Bong? So you need to look at those things, that these things play a factor. Will his 30% plus or minus increase or decrease in the first round?
Gabriel, let's look at the economy and its role in 2023 elections.
Yeah, I think Alex did a good job. Alex, thank you for covering that. And for, our body of politics in Liberia, of course, unfortunately, they never do. The economy doesn't decide who becomes president. Every decision that we've always made, they've always gone off of, personality or popularity, and this is why I like what we do here, in terms of what we do here, this conversation. And I think we just started having this kind of conversation maybe the last 2 or 3 years. I will hope that going forward, or this upcoming election, that it becomes the key determinant in terms of who becomes the president. When I mean key determinant, I mean who puts out the best policy, who puts out the best idea, who puts out the best team, who execute that in those very respective county that Alex talked about, right? But we're not doing that. Like, if I were in the opposition bloc, I would be looking at this data that we just looked at today, since 2017 up to now. There's nothing good about them. Like, when I was going back looking at them, there's nothing good about them. I will hone my message around them, right? We can talk about the economy, right? How well equipped or experienced are the people that are around you? Like I know that I want to come into power, let's say 2023. Right now, we have about, what is it, 14 months away, maybe 14 months or less away. Every key cabinet position or department, I will have team vetted already, doing policy work in those very areas, right? Being able to talk about that, right? Another one of the most important things that we miss out in this, discussion is, I think Alex alluded to that, is private sector jobs. You, myself, and Larry, and everyone else in this audience that's watching us now, even in Liberia, there's one thing that's a common denominator, right? That is, you need job to take care of yourself. You need income to take care of yourself, right? That's the basic human survival. As my dad would always say, you want to kill a man, just take away his ability to earn, and you have just killed him without even taking a shot or swinging at him, right? Nobody's talking about job. If I were in the opposition bloc, the jobs sector, the private sector, how would I bring companies in this country? How would I develop the economy? How would I advance the youth, the education, the healthcare system? All of those important things, and even though it may not be the main conversation that people want to have, I will make it the key conversation that people want to have because of the preparation that I will do on my end, and it will become one of the biggest discussion that people will want to have, as opposed to, oh, this one here, he only been here for this amount of time, or this one is a footballer. There's the key among all of this, regardless of everything we talk about. The biggest determinant is the economy. It affects everything you do. It affects how you sleep, what you do for work, how people look at you. It affects everything. And it's kind of baffles me sometimes that we don't talk. It's not talked about constantly as we're supposed to be talking about it. But again, this is the way we've been. But it has to take somebody with intentionality who's going to come in and make that part of the conversation and make it their key message going forward. But I would urge every Liberian that this should become the part of the conversation. It should become the determinant that puts somebody in power. What that person going to do for a job, how are they going to advance the entirety of the country. So I hope going forward that becomes part of the conversation. Yeah.
Right. And before I go to Larry or Gabriel, in 2017, that was the key message from Mr. Cummings that I heard, because during the debate, they asked him about war crimes court. And he said, everything is the economy. If people have jobs,
yeah,
all these things will go away. And
right.
He will always say, let's grow the pie.
Yep.
Right now, when you say these things, they say, oh, Dennis, why you hate Mr. Cummings? So why is it that even people with finance background aren't talking about the economy?
I mean, again, it goes to like what we have, and this is why I love. I don't want to keep repeating myself. This is why I love this show, especially the focus on the marketplace, because those are all the things we talk about. I don't know if there's another thing out there that another show out there that does what we do, right? But it need to become part of the key conversation. I am part of certain chat group. When we go in there, we talk about it. People take the conversation and just make it about politics. I don't like in this country, any person that comes to power, the key message is the economy. What the predecessor is not doing right, or the current person in power is not doing right. How they're going to advance the economy. In our body of politics, this is what we need to do. Take the conversation away from the personality, away from the triviality, and make it about the economy. How, as I said, private sector jobs. Like I would say this before I land, right? And Larry can come in. I always tell people this story. In 2015, when I was coming out of grad school, there was a guy in Liberia who had this company, right? He was building homes. Actually, he had a whole set in Ghana. He was, I think he already in Liberia. But the problem that he was having with his accounting department, the payment, people would pay cash. And that cash, sometimes he won't get all of it. So he and I had this conversation. He said, "Oh, if when you graduate, I want you to come in and work for me in the accounting department to set up an automated system where there will be less, people will not be touching cash. I just want to automate the system where people will be paying online, and because I don't want people touching cash. When they touch the cash, I don't get it." So we had that discussion, right? Fast forward, he's out of that country. He's out of that country, gone, right? So another story. I live right here to another German guy who was looking to build, the PVC pipe that we use for plumbing in our homes, right? He wanted to explore to establish a company in Liberia. The first thing we look at, I kept working with him, like coming up with research, market research. I went to the guy before I even sat down. He said the cost of electricity, Gabriel, is very high. You guys are the highest, like per megawatts or per kilowatts. You guys are the highest on the continent. Like even if we're making profits, this is going to eat into the profit, you know. And that you know there was other good factors in terms of our land, in terms of our where it was going to be located, and all of that. How much there was all of those things. But if you're not making business to make profit, I think nobody you can attract people in there. So these solution of how we're going to reduce the cost of electricity, how we're going to improve infrastructure, how we're going to bring in private capital or private companies in our country. We graduate thousands of student college graduate every year. Those kids just graduate and they put them right out in the street. No job for them to go in. No other company. That's why everybody just run into the government. This is why I believe we need to make this conversation about the economy. It's about jobs, 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 and jobs, because that's all we need to survive. Everything else comes secondary to that. If not, your survival instinct kicks in and you turn to corruption. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry, Alex and Gabriel agree that the economy is going to play a pivotal role in 2023. For Gabriel, he said, well, the only thing is that we're not talking about it, unfortunately. Where you stand on this? Other people argue, like my friend Hamilton Zilli say, hey, Liberia's election has never been about the issue. And sometimes I disagree with a lot of people who think that Liberia elections he said, our elections are not issue-based because both of our people are illiterate. Even the functional literal ones lack the ability to think outside the box. And sometimes I disagree that people are not voting on issues. To you, what is the role? How pivotal would the economy be in 2023? You agree with Gabriel, Alex, or Hamilton?
You see, Dennis, there's an old saying that fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. You can only, because the first time you fool me, you have revealed yourself. The first time you got elected without going to a debate, without putting out an economic plan, you reveal yourself. So, I kind of disagree with Hamilton because I haven't seen the data that shows that a majority of the people vote on sentiments and not issues. I think people do vote on issues. And that was proven with the election of Darius Dillon. Because the issue at that time was people were unhappy. The economy wasn't doing well. Jobs weren't being created. And it was a protest vote. And that's why I brought Dillon into the Senate. So I would disagree. That it's not issue. I would say maybe a small percentage of people will vote on travel lines. No matter what you do, they will vote on travel lines. I think that's a small percentage of people. Because now you're not going to get away with fooling the people by not going to a debate. I don't think you can fool them twice like that. And when you come to a debate, you have to show your report card. And when you start bringing things out like how well you're done with the MCC, how well you have done with the Pro-Poor agenda, you're going to fail because the Pro-Poor agenda was meant to alleviate over 1 million people out of poverty. Instead, when you look at the World Bank report, it said roughly 2% of people fell into poverty in 2020. So you didn't even come close to meeting your objective in the Pro-Poor agenda of alleviating poverty. You made it even worse. You can't fool the people twice. So people who are saying, yeah, I think it's a small percentage, maybe 20, 25% of people, but it's all about the economy. The political strategist for Bill Clinton, James Carville said, it's all about the economy, stupid. He said that because if you're not focusing on the economy, you're wasting your time. People in Liberia will vote on the economy. Why? Because if the economy is not doing well, you're not going to be working. If you're not working, you cannot feed your family. If you cannot feed your family, the worst thing you can have in your household is an angry wife. A hungry wife would be an angry wife. And that's going to motivate you to get mad and do something about it. Liberians voted their anger by bringing Dillon into the Senate. And I think right now, some of the elections out there, you will see that people will be voting against the ruling establishment. Seldom win re-election. They seldom win re-election if the economy is not doing well. Look at the data around Africa. Look at the data in the US and other countries. Whether you're functionally illiterate or not, you don't need book knowledge to tell you how hungry you are. I ain't got to go get a college degree for you to tell me I'm hungry. No, I can feel it. And who am I going to blame? I'm going to blame the people who are not giving me the ability to get a job and earn an income. So yeah, but what I would like to see, I want someone to run a survey. Pull out a survey out there in the 15 counties or so, pull out a survey and talk about, list some things, travel lines, jobs, education, things like that. It will give you a good sense in terms of, you'll take a pulse of the country. You will know where people stand on issues. But yeah, people do vote on issues in Liberia. I think a small percentage of people will vote on travel lines, but I think the economy is going to play a major part. It's going to play a very major part. And here's the thing.
Yeah.
Economic data, and real quick to wrap up, economic data is what we say is laggard, meaning it comes late. So after the end of this year, there's nothing that's going to happen next year that will influence the people economy-wise, because you're not going to see the data until the end of the year, by that time election is over. So the establishment right now only has the last few months, 5 months, to show at the end of this year, when the data comes out in January, February, to show the job creation, to show economic growth that will pass where they met the economy. If they don't show it at the end of the year, I don't think they're going to do well. And when the U.S. put out a report saying your foreign direct investments is falling because it's more beneficial for you to work illegally or operate an illegal business in Liberia than a legal one, that's bad for you. That's bad for you.
Yeah.
Right. And Theo, if there are numbers, we have people on the radio in Liberia who are calling, please put them in. So if the elections of 2023 are going to be about the economy, or if the economy is going to be central, who is that going to favor? If the economy is bad or is good? I mean, you don't have to call names, but just give me some idea as to how it's going to go based on the elections.
So
on the economy.
I want to be general in this one, right? And so I would just say the opposition bloc, and they have, when I mean key data at their fingertip that they could leverage in terms of selling their message. There's key data. Since 2017, the international aid, the U.S. aid itself that goes into Liberia, when I mean it has taken a nosedive, every year it has declined. That can tell you what that says about the current administration. That tells the people that, hey, the international community doesn't have any confidence in you. You can leverage that. You can leverage that as part of your message. But I think currently, to answer the question, given every data that is out there, the one that I know that we talked about on the show and other shows as well, if you sell that message to the the citizen of Liberia, and
that is an if.
That is a big if, right? We could go off the path and start talking about politics again, right? If you sell that message to the Liberian people, there is no doubt within my mind that decision will favor the opposition, depending who becomes, who rise to the top of that of that crops of people. Yeah.
Thank you. Let's read a few comments here, and if you want to join the conversation on the line, please, the number is in the scrolling text there. Call the number. If you are in the U.S., it's 605-313-6004. The code is 791-403. If you are in the U.S., Canada, or other parts of the world. If you are in Liberia, locally in Monrovia, call the number on the screen. That's 077-0100-051 to join the conversation. Theo, please now our number to your radio audience.
454955.
Thank you, Theo. And a few comments here I want to read quickly. We have a lot of comments. Patrick J. say, if the sanctions aren't ready to help opposition to win 2023 elections, then what about the scorecard? So if I can read into that, it's saying the sanctions on those 3 government officials who are Mr. Weir's insiders is not going to do anything to affect the incumbent. So scorecard, nothing.
Yeah.
Flomo Livingston said the CDC government can rule Liberia for 500 years. They would never pass MCC. Stephen Johnson Page, sadly, Tua has been lying about inflation being under control in Liberia compared to the other countries in West Africa, but he's the only one feeling inflation when he's dollarized. Eugenia say, I hope our government is watching. Flomo said he's afraid to hire competent people. Toby Dennis, remember those who sang Hosanna after later said crucify him. Our situation is pathetic. The same people sang before. You killed my mom, you killed my pa, I will vote for you. Ignorance is responsible. And why you didn't they say, if you kill me, my spirit will vote for you. Wow. Farrison, 1 year, really, Mr. Alex? Are you saying that Minister McGill and Director Bill Twaway paid over the 30,000 people who went to welcome them? So you had 30,000 in Riverside? I don't think Riverside.
That's how we are beginning.
Dr. Edison Padua, Liberia is headed into a wrong direction regarding the way we are handling inflation. Right now, we are experiencing demand pull inflation, which has to do with the relative cost of goods and services. This type of inflation is gradually to cost push inflation, which relate to how businesses raise prices when the cost of goods and services are high due to strong demand pull inflation. What I fear more for our country is the third type of inflation, built-in inflation. By this, Hamilton said our elections are not issue-based. We already read that. Do I say you guys are doing a good job? Dr. Padua agree with Hamilton that our elections are not issue-based. Hamilton also said the opposition has the leverage of making issues such as the economy, jobs, rule of law, national security, healthcare, and education. But sadly, not enough. I was just looking at even issues like the new LACC law. Opposition people are not talking about it and what that means. We don't see people talking about the budget when they put it out there. Okay, and prior to the show, we're discussing even the role of this whole idea of foreign direct investment. Okay, on one hand, people are saying the economy, you guys are doing bad, you are stealing the money. But on the other hand, they continue to support the national budget from donor funds, right? You are saying the money we're giving you, you keep stealing it, yet we keep giving more. So sometimes you don't even know what's going on. Okay. Lara, you are thinking about that. Yeah, I mean, you're telling someone, and I'm not suggesting that you should withhold funding from the government, but you are telling someone, hey, the money I'm giving you, you are on crack, for the lack of a better analogy. Yet and still I continue to give this money to you. I mean, what are you saying?
It's just part of the U.S. foreign policy to try to influence countries out there, because it's good to have friends in far up distance places. But bear in mind, recently the U.S. came out with a new policy to try to re-engage Africa. Why? Because the U.S. noticed that China has been making moves in Africa. So the U.S. has been trying to offset that. In fact, several years ago, 2 students from William and Mary did a study to figure out the influence of China in Liberia. Those are the kind of things, and the U.S. government paid for that study. It's because the U.S. government is watching China making certain moves in Africa to win over, to promote Chinese ideology. The U.S. is trying to combat that. That's why they keep pumping money sometimes to governments that are ineffective. That's one reason. The other reason too, it's highly complicated. I shared it with you guys this morning when we're having a little discussion. It's something I cannot go to on the air, but it's a highly complicated process. And having very good leadership is one way to address that. Because I actually spent 3 years studying it, and it's just complicated. It's very complicated. You can't bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Theo, let me come to you, Theo. Do we have numbers? Do you have callers on the line? And are people talking about this scorecard in Monrovia? Are they talking about scorecard in Liberia, the millennial scorecard? Whether we are passing a feeling, is that a problem there?
We don't have any caller yet, Dennis.
Oh, okay.
What about the
What's
scorecard?
about the scorecard? And we economic freedom, is it in the discussion there in Liberia?
Of course, it is. It is. You have mixed views on that. Liberians from all spectrum have been commenting on the scorecard since it was released.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend in Liberia, and they said the government is even in denial. So they're saying that there is no scorecard out there. That's old. People try to discount and say, well, it's America again. They are doing these things because even the sanction, there are some people who say, hey, is the opposition trying to walk through the US, because they can't do it on their own. And even the scorecard, people are pointing fingers at others who are critical of government, say they are the one trying to influence the international community to be against the government. Are those sentiments in Monrovia, in Liberia as well?
Of course, you have people thinking that way, Dennis. But the fact of the matter is, these things are observed, they are captured, and when the reports are out, I mean, it's just done independently as it is, not like the way some other people will perceive it.
Thank you.
Dennis, let me say one thing real quick.
Yeah.
If the government is spending over $3 million per year on foreign lobbying, $3 million per year on foreign lobbying, and they cannot influence the U.S. government, and the opposition that is not spending any money whatsoever is able to influence the U.S. government at this rate, maybe the government should stop paying all that money for foreign lobbying, right? And save the Liberian people $3 million a year. You pay all that money for foreign lobbying, you come, you take pictures with Lindsey Graham, you take pictures with the guy from Texas, you take all those fantastic pictures, and then what happens? In return, they put you on a sanctions list, right? Maybe you should stop lobbying because you're hurting yourself. Every time you lobby, you fail the MCC. Every time you lobby, they put you on sanctions list. Maybe that's just not a good strategy for you. So the nonsense that the opposition is really doing this, you're trying to say that the opposition told you to go out there and be corrupt? Come on, man. But I'm sure there's a small percentage of people who will buy into that narrative, right? And also some of the people saying those things, they're being paid. When you read the U.S. government reports, it says so right there. The government is paying conflict agents. They're paying people to go out there and create conflict. So when you hear those people there on the street then making some of those silly chants, it's just a small group of people that have been paid to do that. So don't buy into that nonsense,
Thank you. We're about to draw down the curtains. Mr. Lobo kept asking about the number. Mr. Lobo, you are a resident here. The number is on the screen. This is the teleconference number. You can call that number. We are winding this down. So if you have to call, please do that quickly as we draw down the curtains. So we're going to take leave of our group in Monrovia there. Let's wrap this up. Let's start with Theo. What's your closing comments? I go to Gabriel and then Larry for us to close.
Thanks to all of you guys. It's been a wonderful conversation. We hope to have more of these conversations on the radio so that those who are back home can actually understand some of these things as they happen in our country. And so to conclude, thanks to all of the guys who's been on. It's been a wonderful time. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Gabriel?
Yeah. Dennis, thank you for having us on here again. I think we've had a great discussion. For me, I think what I would like to close with is exactly what I stated earlier, that, despite, what the history of our politics may have been in terms of how we voted and in terms of the things we brought to the forefront of the election, I hope, going forward that we can put the economy, and not just going forward, but going forward from now onward, every election cycle, we can put the economy at the forefront of our discussion, because that's what matters. At the end of the day, the people that you elected based on politics, that's the mess. That's what they come in power to do. Even though you don't talk about the economy, the people you elect, they come in power to fix the economy, because things are not going right. Your rice, is expensive. Gasoline is expensive. You don't have any jobs. You continue to sing sour or muya muya. So I really hope.
Gabriel, hold your thought. Let me bring in George Lobo. George Preston Sa Lobo. He calls himself Preston, but I like Sa better. Sa, go ahead.
Dennis, I want to say thank you very much for having me on. Let me greet your panelists, both Larry and the other panelists in studio. I follow the conversation greatly. Great show. There are a few things that I wanted to touch on. Sorry that I got on late, but Larry, I accept the invite. I just wanted to say a few things. I heard you saying that the opposition is now running on the scorecards and people are not talking about it. The opposition in Liberia are going against the ruling establishment in the media. And what do I mean by that? In other countries, the fourth estates take the responsibility of holding the government feet to fire by highlighting the ills and performances of the government. In Liberia, unfortunately, all we have is over 80% of the media outlets in Liberia tend to be all praise thinkers. How often, since the issue of LACC came out, the indictment, how many media outlets spend time talking about it? When these issue of reports come out, how often do we see media outlets, like when it comes to the economy, apart from what you, Larry, you guys do on Focus on Liberia? How many other platforms, let's say we try on the drive every now and then? So the thing about it is, the reason why the people don't know, what the people listen to, 90% is all gossip, bring government officials to just talk about it. People are not talking about how many jobs been created. We do not hear media outlet holding the government feet accountable, saying, what is the government policy, assessing the performances of the government policy. So again, the opposition, the deck is stacked against them. However, I will say this. One thing we do know, you can never intellectualize hunger. And we are going to make this election about the issues. It is going to be about the economy, because everything is tied to the economy. No government functions, no country develop or move forward or create jobs for its people if the economy is not strong. Even when it comes to that, on the issue of the MCC scorecard, like you said, Larry, this is a standard to keep lying to the people that people are coming from Ghana to asking how he's doing it. I don't know what they're learning from him, how he's feeling MCC, because Ghana they're passing. So I don't know who will come to stand up. But again, we do not have media outlet with the capability of holding the government feet to fire, calling Standard 12 and saying, Minister 12, few months ago, you told us that you guys were going to do everything to pass. Unfortunately for you guys have not passed. How many media outlets have taken the PAPD, where they promised to lift 1.5 million people out of poverty, to assess the progress being done, apart from FOL once in a while? A few of us. So again, we can do our part, but the fourth estate has a role to play in it. And that is the struggle the opposition has. In America, it is the media outlet that talks about the government performance. In Liberia, unfortunately for us, our media outlet are there to sing praising the government. So yes, we are going to make this not an issue, but we love for this platform to bring these conversations front and center. When you have the time, let us know what we intend to do, how we intend to make it better. What are our plans on the economy? Because those are the things we're going to be running on. And for us in the TNP camp, let me not speak for the other people. We are going to tie this campaign front and center to the performance of this government. How have the CDC government that said the Unity Party was bad, but yet a registered nurse was making $270 with $14,000 Liberian dollars. Today make $175 with $7,000 and can barely get paid on time. Those are the questions we are going to ask, and that is the debate we are looking forward to. So I just want to say, because of time, thank you for the opportunity. But I look forward to join you guys on next week's Sunday show, that we can have some of these great conversations and touch on a lot of the issues that you guys talk about in the economy.
Perfect.
Thank you. And that's I want us to take some time to respond to Mr. Lobo. He said the opposition is the media. The opposition is against the establishment and also the media. Lara, let me. Oh, okay, Gabriel, go ahead. He said the media is not breaking up the issue, even though JNB, Cummings, and the rest of the people are making their rounds. but it's the media. Go
I
ahead.
think 2 shows ago, I kind of scolded once somebody, one of the journalists. I think what the conversation that he and I had was exactly what George Lobo said. So in over here in the United States, there's economic journalists, right? Journalists who focus on specifically on the economy. There are some who focus on the politics, right? The case that we were talking about was the killing that are happening. Where when killing happen in a country within 2 or 3 weeks, it dies and nobody follow up on it. In those cases, the journalist is supposed to be digging up on those cases, making sure they follow up on the following investigative journalism, right? Where you follow up on the case to see what is happening, so that you continue to have that conversation in the media, so it kind of holds the government feet to the fire. That's the argument that kid and I had. And I said, we don't have that, not just from the killing, but the same thing with the economy. This millennial scorecard that came out, give it 2 or 3 weeks, it would die down. Nobody would do anything about it. But imagine we had a journalist in our country or anywhere in Liberia who would follow up on this thing to say, hey, we've been calling Samuel Twe to come and answer to these things. Hey, you haven't made a statement. You say you're going to pass, but we failed again. So yes, I agree with him. The journalism in Liberia are not doing their job. And I told this kid that's exactly what we just talked about here. And this is exactly what Lo was talking about. Unfortunately, I mean, yeah, fortunately, I do agree with him. So I absolutely agree with him.
Larry?
Yeah, look, George is absolutely correct. Because a lot of people get the information from social media, and a lot of the online news outlets share that information. A majority of the news outlets out there, the social media news outlet, they do not really discuss the issues. They discuss personalities. They create conflicts in some of their online broadcasts. They don't really focus on the issues. But like George said, I mean, what he is pointing to, they're going to make it about the issues. I think a lot of the people want to hear more about the issues. They want to focus on the issues. So I think it's just up to the political parties to decide when someone is interviewing you, if they're going to ask you a personality question, are you going to stick to the issue, or are you going to fall for that bait and go discuss personality? But here's the thing. The U.S. is not going to give up. They're not going to relinquish. They're not going to let up on hitting people with sanctions. They did the first sanctions against 2 senators last year, December. They put out the big sanctions. Sanctions now are a way the U.S. is going to use to influence the elections in Liberia. I'm going to say this. The elections in Liberia will be influenced by the sanctions the U.S. is putting out. The ambassador said it. Dana Banks spoke about it. Linda Greenfield spoke about it. Ambassador McCarthy wrote about it. What would J.J. Roberts do? President Biden put out a memo back in June of 2021 that corruption now is a threat to U.S. national security. So whether people like it or not, the U.S. sanctions is going to have a major impact, because when they hit you with a sanction, it's going to also reduce the amount of foreign aid that you're receiving. And when you have a budget around $800 million and about $250,000 of that budget relies on foreign aid, it's going to hurt you. And when it hurt you, the people will feel it, and then people will take action and they will start protesting with their vote. They will protest with their vote against you. So yeah, I agree with my man Lobo. Lobo should have he should have studied in law. He should have become a lawyer. I think he would have been either a good prosecutor or a good defense attorney.
Yeah, for me, I personally, I mean, I agree with him. Maybe up to 10%. I believe is the opposition that is not talking about the issues. They have no literature, nothing anywhere. Take for instance, I've been almost everybody talk about the easy one, right? Agriculture. But you can give us any number. I think Ben Finn, the one of the presidential candidates. I don't want to use close quotes because I want to be respectful. It was one of Ben who kind of tried to give some number and say, well, Liberia, our population, I mean, the total land mass is this. This one is the place for farming. And even with this percent, we are not making use of. No opposition person is giving me any number. Nobody is telling me in black and white to hammer these issues. LACC. Now we're talking about the scorecard. When the sanction came, I mean, all the opposition, they were jumping all over it. I wanted you to do that even before this thing come out.
Yeah.
I mean, lay it out. Let's see what the numbers are and how you're gonna do a better job. Most of the time when I interview people from the opposition, they say, well, if we put our plans out there, somebody will steal it. So I want to see more coming out of the opposition. It shouldn't take you even 24 hours to come up with a response to some of these things.
Right.
You know, that people can, because you have the people, you know, if you can. And I want the opposition to, or people, if you have a press release, why don't you send it out to people? Why don't you send it out to Focus on Liberia and other media institutions? You are taking thousands of dollars because, mind you, the opposition is also lobbying the U.S. government. You could take maybe a fraction of that amount and lobby the legislators or the press, you know, pay money so that we can come and cover your event. Fly my reporters from here to wherever you are having your event so we can cover it and report on it.
Yeah.
But you are so much interested in maybe foreign media or saying, well, the government is this. We expect, you know, quite recently, our reporter in Liberia was added to the executive mansion press team so that we can cover the executive mansion.
That's
and we
really
thank
good.
God for that.
Yeah.
What's about the opposition? If the opposition doing something, I mean, we have to be the one chasing them to see where they are. Why don't you pick up the phone and say, hey, we are having something today. We want your reporters to come there. You know,
I agree. I agree.
That's some of the challenge. But let's conclude. Larry, let me get your closing comment.
Yeah, my closing comments, just want to put out a programming note for the marketplace, Focus on Liberia Marketplace. On Saturday, September the 3rd at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, Focus on Liberia Marketplace will be hosting Gerald Barkley. Mr. Gerald Barkley, if you guys don't know who he is, he's a film producer, a director. He's going to be on discussing the possibility of setting up a movie studio, movie production company in Liberia, similar to what they're doing in Nollywood, what we've seen in Bollywood. So we're going to have Gerald Barkley and a couple of people come on Focus on Liberia Marketplace, Saturday, September 3rd. On Saturday, September the 10th, we will have retired judge John Littlejohn. He's a friend of Liberia, retired judge whose granddaughter recently graduated from the University of Houston. He will be on the marketplace to discuss the opportunity of solar panels in Liberia, something that is very important to Liberians everywhere. He was recently in Benin. His daughter is working for a solar power company, and they're looking to start doing something with solar panels in Liberia. He's focusing on helping clinics in Liberia to try to reduce infant and maternal mortality rates. So Judge Littlejohn, and I love Judge Littlejohn, the fact that you have a retired judge that went back and took classes in college to learn about solar panels just so he can travel to Liberia and help out with solar panels. You got to love and respect someone like that. So September 10th, we will have Judge Littlejohn. September 3rd, we will have Gerald Barkley on Focus on Liberia. My closing comments, I love Focus on Liberia. And I'll always be glad to appear on this show every now and then to discuss the issues. So thanks, Dennis. Thanks, Gabriel. It was a pleasure being here with you guys.
Thank you. And we are fortunate to have all of you contribute your expert knowledge to the building of our country. Anybody know Hawa Mesga? Hawa sent this. The Rally for Justice in Washington, D.C. is coming up. This is October 24, 2022. And October 25, 2022, 9 p.m. They'll be marching at the Liberian Embassy to the White House in D.C. to talk about justice for all the people that have been murdered or killed or disappeared under mysterious circumstances. For details, contact those numbers. That's 404-234-2534 or 443-527-5139. Again, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for your time. I want to thank our viewers for always watching Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. On top of the hour, we're going to have on point three or four guys that discuss thought-provoking issues. They don't agree, but they make it so. I mean, how can three people be talking different things, but three of them still right? Because those guys know how to talk about the issues from both sides. Or the opposing side, you don't want to miss it. This is coming up on top of the hour at 6 o'clock. Until then, we conclude with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Whether you believe that we are passing the scorecard or we are failing, whether you believe the good things you've seen here have never been done since 1847, or we never see this kind of thing since Ellen time, whatever your orientation, whatever your point of view, we are all Liberians, and let us do whatever it takes to make our country the glorious land of liberty. Have a good day.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our